Hello, everyone. I'm Fritz Mayer, Dean of the Korbel School of International Studies at the University of Denver. And it's my great pleasure and honor indeed, on behalf of the C Center's Inclusive Global Leadership Initiative, IGLI, and the Environmental Sustainability Initiative at the Korbel School to welcome you to Shaping a Sustainable Future, Women's Activism for Environmental Justice. This is a conversation with members of the IGLI network who will discuss their activism and their role as grassroots activists in women's movements and the role they're playing in addressing the climate crisis and working towards environmental justice. This is a great event for us at the school. It really brings together two of our priorities. Of course, environmental sustainability, particularly the social impacts of climate change, and social justice. And that's most notably evidenced today through IGLI and IGLI's work in bringing together women activists from around the world who are working on social justice issues really in all its dimensions. And it's deeply appropriate that we are talking about today's topic, given that tomorrow is International Women's Day. And the theme this year is Gender Equality Today for a Sustainable Tomorrow, which is really focused on the efforts of women and girls around the world to ensure a sustainable future for all. We have a fantastic panel today, members of the IGLI network who will share their perspective and expertise and experiences really on the front lines of these issues. So welcome to all of you. And it's now my pleasure to introduce and hand over the proceedings to Hen Rice, who is the interim director of the Inclusive Global Leadership Initiative, IGLI, and director of our Humanitarian Assistance Program. And Hen will introduce the panelists and moderate the discussions. Hen.
Thank you so much, Fritz. So it's my pleasure to introduce our panelists today. And as Fritz mentioned, they're both members of the IGLI network of grassroots activists. And I'd like to start by introducing Olankike Olugboji. She's an award-winning conservationist, climate justice, and women's empowerment advocate. Since 2004, she's been a leader in advancing grassroots women's representation, active participation, and leadership in natural resource governance. Through the work of the nonprofit that she founded, Women's Initiative for Sustainable Environment, or WISE, that's the acronym, she's directly impacted over 20,000 women at the grassroots level. She sits on the boards of a number of organizations and companies in Nigeria where she's based. She has degrees in urban and regional planning, and her core areas of expertise include environment, climate justice, peace, and gender development. Our other panelist today is Yevgeniya Chirikova. And since the summer of 2006, she's been a central actor in grassroots movements to save the Khimki Forest in Russia, where she's from. Forced to flee her country in 2014, following confrontations with the Putin regime, she's now based in Estonia and manages a social media portal, Activism.org, for supporting grassroots groups in Russia that are working on various social justice issues. Yevgeniya has been recognized internationally for her activism, including as a recipient of the Women of Courage Award from the US Embassy in 2011 and the Goldman Environmental Prize in 2012. So thank you both so much for joining us today. I want to start with you, Yevgeniya. Obviously, something that's front of mind for many of us and for the world as we've watched the Russian invasion of Ukraine over the past almost 2 weeks. Can you talk to us about what's happening in response amongst the activist communities in Russia and how you're working to support them at this time?
Thank you a lot for organizers of this amazing conference and for great opportunity to share my opinion about this catastrophe. Unfortunately, 11 days ago, happens horrible thing, and I couldn't imagine that it's possible that Russian troops to bomb Ukraine cities and to kill Ukraine women and Ukraine kids and Ukraine men. And every day I started my day from news from Ukraine, and I couldn't stop to cry because my grandfather, he was from Ukraine, and I have Ukraine blood, and I have a lot of friends on Ukraine, and I'm very concerned about situation on Ukraine. Every day I observe situation how Russian troops to bomb Kharkov and destroy anything on Kharkov. And every day I get horrible information and from small place on Ukraine, Irpin. It's a very small city. Families try to evacuate from this place, and Russian bomb to kill family with kids. It's impossible to read this news without crying. And well, it was really horrible news when we get information that Russian troops started to bomb nuclear station Zaporozhskaya. I think it was crazy decision, absolutely dangerous and crazy decision to bomb nuclear station. And at this moment on Russia, we try to disseminate information about react on Russian civil society. And my portal, Activism.org, we try to disseminate information about protests on different places on Russia, on Moscow, on St. Petersburg, on Yekaterinburg, and other places. It's really amazing and really heroes who come to protest. Why? Because at this moment, Putin's regime to arrested immediately people with simple transparent stop war. And unfortunately, yesterday, my portal, Activism.org, was blocked by prosecutor office of Russia. Why? Because my portal disseminates truth about war on Ukraine. And at this moment, Putin's regime to disseminate propaganda lie that on Ukraine only special operation, it's not a war, but it's not true. And unfortunately, Russian activists who continue their protest against war, they have a huge risk to come to prison. And at this moment, I try to evacuate Russian activists and journalists from Russia. And this night, we try to evacuate 2 people from Russia to Georgia, but unfortunately they couldn't to come to Georgia because Georgia authorities decided to deport them to Moscow. It's extremely dangerous and crazy decision. And at this moment, we organize the evacuation to Antalya, to I'm so sorry, I'm really very nervous because it's absolutely dangerous situation and very nervous situation for me. And at this moment, my friend activist located on Turkey, on Antalya, but a lot of my friends, activists at this moment, wait my help on Russia. And we need support, we need resources. Why? Because unfortunately, it's absolutely unusual situation for us. We don't have a special resource for evacuation activists. And at this moment, I tried to collect money for tickets because real price for tickets very high on Russia. And it's really very difficult to fly from Moscow to Yerevan, to Antalya, to other safety places. And I very, very pleasant for people who help us on this task. And of course, when we decided to organize this conference, I wanted to say about climate change, about grassroots activity on Russia. But at this moment, I'm very sad because every moment I think how it's possible to stop this disgusting war. And I think that together we need to kindly ask politicians, leaders on USA, on Europe, to close sky on Ukraine and stop bombing on Ukraine cities. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Yevgeniya. Olankike, I want to turn to you and ask something that's a related question. With authoritarian governments on the rise, there's been an increased risk of attacks against activists, including environmental activists, who also often find themselves at risk from corporate interests that their activism is opposing. And I want to know how you see these risks in Nigeria, where you work, how you manage those risks for yourselves, for your colleagues, and obviously for the communities that you work with. Yevgeniya, I'll ask you that same question, but I want to hear first from Olankike about the work in Nigeria and some of the risks for doing this sort of activism.
Thank you so much, Chen. And it was great just hearing from Yevgeniya. And just like her, I'm so saddened by what is happening in Ukraine. And I can imagine what she's going through as an activist who can't live in her country just because of threats. And so this is a peculiar situation for quite a number of activists. And I can imagine what the world would be like when, we don't have people who will, stand up for others and enlighten others on why we must speak out against injustice, because injustice to one is injustice to all. And so for me, as an activist, I've had my own share of experiences when it comes to threats. I recall at the time when the insurgency started in Nigeria a couple of years back. And I have an online journal. I started writing about it. I participated in nonviolent campaigns. For example, the Bring Back Our Girls campaign that brought to the front lines the stories of the girls, the over 100 Chibok girls who were kidnapped, and sadly, a handful of them are still in captivity. There's also Leah Shuaibu, who is still in captivity. And so for me as an activist, it's been just one experience too many. And sometimes I've had situations where I just have to fizzle out just, for my own safety. There's so many people, who don't have a platform, whose voices have been repressed and all that. And when they find people like us who speak out, they always will want us to reach out to them. I remember at some point, someone reached out to me from northeastern Nigeria and said, the girls over here need you. And, as much as I wanted to be there on ground, I knew that it wasn't safe for me because I've experienced cyber stalking, I've experienced real-time stalking. There are times I just go on the ground. And, for some of us, our families are also vulnerable, to whatever threats that we are facing. And we sure don't want to just jeopardize, the safety of our families, the safety of people we're working with, and even for some of the women that we're working with on the ground. we're mobilizing these women and also saying, your voices need to be heard. You can't keep silent. You just must come out there. So we must also teach them how to stay safe. So we've integrated safety trainings into our programs, like we do online safety, where, for example, at some point, my name had to be pulled out from my online journal. And I started going by, a different name. And, I also have to go on the ground, a couple of times, just, stay in the dark and keep walking from the background of, wherever I am. But the truth is that we can't stop. We can't keep silent. We must continue to speak out against injustice, because wherever injustice thrives, there can never be progress. A lot of times you just find out that people are just oppressed. People are repressed. People are denied opportunities that would help them find their
Olankike, I think we lost you. It's one of the challenges of working across different continents.
expression. Will help them try. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
now we can hear you again.
Yeah, so we just must keep speaking up, and we just must learn to stay safe and make sure that the people we are organizing, mobilizing to be at the front lines of addressing repressive governments, repressive situations, we also teach them how to stay safe. Because that's the only way we can continue to, grow our movements. And the more we grow, then we are, we build more confidence in ourselves, and, are assured that one day we will conquer.
Yeah, thank you, Olankike. And we're so grateful that you are working on these issues, that you're speaking out, even if at times it is at great risk to you and to your family. And Yevgeniya, of course, also just really, really grateful that you are actively engaged in voicing the opposition to this invasion and this war, and that also at great personal risk, that your activism and the activism of others who are trying to stop this and other injustices are facing. And if you could speak a little bit to some of the risks that activists face in Russia, and how beyond just this immediate conflict, but more generally, and how you manage or have managed this sort of risk in your work.
Well, thank you a lot for this great question. Unfortunately, recently, price of protest in Russia increasing. And 15 years ago, when I started my activity like a grassroots activist, like an environmentalist, we have a big risk. For example, my best friend, journalist Mikhail Beketov, who shared information about corruption on this case, destroying Khimki Forest for payment motorway and infrastructure, Moscow-St. Petersburg through Khimki Forest. He was brutal attack, and it's attack organized mayor of our city, Khimki, and Russian authorities to kill this journalist. And it was a huge tragedy for us. And it was a normal message of Russian authorities 15 years ago. But at this moment, I realized that Russian authorities don't change their methods and continue to use murder and kill activists. And well, we have 1,000 cases when Russian authorities to fabricate criminal cases against activists and send them to the prison. And at this moment, it's very, very simple to come to prison for activists on Russia. And well, Russian authorities to use very disgusting and dirty methods against activists. For example, on my own case, authorities try to take my child from my family. And it was really very painful for me, like for mom, when authorities decided to take my kids from my family. And they to disseminate lie about me, then I'm a bad mom and I don't concern about my child. It was not true. And according to Russian legislation, if you don't give food for your child and beat your child, you come to prison. And I was very nervous about this situation. I was very nervous about my kids, but thanks of sharing information, thanks of media support, I was able to save my kids and to stop these disgusting methods. But unfortunately, authorities to continue these methods against other women, against other activists. But I realized that it's really extremely important to have a resource for activists. And it was the reason why we decided to organize Activism.org, a special portal for activists. And our mission was to share information about activity of grassroots movements on different parts of Russia. And at this moment, if you open Facebook, unfortunately, yesterday, authorities blocked my portal, but we continue our job. And yesterday, we disseminate information about real protest against war on different parts of Russia. And if you open Activism.org on Facebook, you find amazing movies with protest of bravest heroes, Russian activists on Moscow, on St. Petersburg, on Siberia. And at this moment, our movies collected millions of views. And a lot of people on Ukraine observe, react, or Russian civil society on this war. And for me, it's extremely important because I'm a Russian activist and I realize that at this moment, image of Russian on the world not so good, thanks of Mr. Putin. And for me, it's really extremely important to share information about anti-military protest on Russia.
Thank you, Yevgeniya. Olankike, I want to ask you a question, shifting gears a little bit. So just last week, the UN Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change released its most extensive report to date. And the report makes it really clear that the window for addressing the worst impacts of climate change or avoiding them is rapidly closing, and that work and efforts to protect the most vulnerable, including, for example, women, indigenous people, and others, have fallen very short so far. And that work on climate change has to be more inclusive to be successful. And I want to hear from you how environmental work can be more inclusive and responsive to those who face the greatest impacts. I know you work very closely at the grassroots level with communities, and I'd love to hear some of your reflections.
Yeah, so in Nigeria, like so many other parts of the world, we're experiencing the effects of climate change, such as drought, erosion, flooding, water shortage, food scarcity, as well as deforestation, which is also reinforcing poverty. And then when you think about the patriarchal traditions, all these have continued to increase the strain and burden on these vulnerable people that you mentioned, women, girls, especially, and persons living with disability. Because most of these people, have been hindered and deprived of environmental prosperity and economic development because of some of these factors that deny them of opportunities to find themselves at the decision-making table. For example, when you're looking at the historic disadvantages of women and how that concerns young girls, women have restricted access to information, especially in this part of the world. They have restricted access to resources and limited power in decision making. And all this make them even more vulnerable to the impacts of environmental challenges, security challenges, issues around climate change. And most of the time, you look at how they are confronted with systems, attitude, practices that overlook and undermine their positions, needs, concerns, rights, roles, and responsibilities in environmental protection and natural resource governance. And when you're looking at the environment, looking at climate justice, you find out, particularly when you're looking at access to environmental resources, that the lives of women are practically connected, especially in my part of the world. And at the grassroots, the lives of these women are directly connected to natural resources. But sadly, because of patriarchal systems in place, over time, they have become marginalized, they become deprived. And that transcends to situations where children, especially girls, are affected. And then, vulnerable populations like persons living with disability. In Nigeria, you'll find that a lot of times women make up a vast majority among farmers, but when you check it, they have no rights to own the land across various cultures, ethnic groups, and all that. Women till the soil day in, day out. They work hard to produce and contribute to food security and all that, but they can't have titles to land because of cultural practices that deny them of this right to own land. And then when you're looking at the issue of water, which is another natural resource in my part of the world, it's women are the custodians of water in households. They are the ones that source for water. Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, I'm just trying to be careful because of my network. It's sometimes can get wobbly. So you find out that women are the ones who source for water, yet they remain the most burdened by the search for clean water and clean water points. But sadly, when interventions are being brought to the community, the women's voices are missing. You find out that I don't have anything against men, and that's what I tell men in the community, that if it's the women who are sourcing for this water, who are fetching the water, who are going to streams to get water from contaminated sources and all, and then you're bringing a solution to the community, why should the woman not be at the decision-making table? Why should she not be able to decide where the water point is going to be? For example, women have to walk long distances. I'm sorry that there was a power outage, and so that's why you're saying that. And I don't want to go off camera, so I'm not able to improve on the illumination. So I'm very sorry about that. So you find out that the men are the ones who take the decisions, whereas it's the women who are going to use the water point. And when you're talking about the issue of access to clean cooking energy, it's the women who go source for firewood. And when they come back, they're the ones who take in the toxic fumes. They are ill-informed about how this is affecting their lives. And most of these women are really considered when conservation strategies are brought to the forefront, whether in terms of the interventions that government is launching, whether in terms of the interventions that certain groups are launching. And so when you look at climate change and the impact of climate change now, this women, girls, and persons living with disability are the ones that are most impacted. But because you have interventions that are not inclusive, that are leaving out the voices of these people who are the most affected, when issues affect a person, I think that is the best person who can offer solution, because they know where it pinches the most. They know how this affects them. So why should their voices be missing when actions are being taken? It's not the traditional roles have positioned women to be the ones who will go fetch firewood. And in the face of deforestation, which is also contributing great to climate change, women have meters to fetch firewood. In the process, they get assaulted, they get raped, some get kidnapped. And you know the security situation in Nigeria now, it's not a good experiences. Right now in Nigeria, we still have displaced persons. By the day, people are getting displaced because of violent extremisms that we're experiencing in different parts of Nigeria. So why should these people who are the most affected be denied, the right to be at the front lines of taking action? One thing that we have to do, we can't continue to have been marginalized. So we tell women that you have to be out of your own, not coming us to taking tables, then create our own tables, and when we take decisions there, we find resources that would help us implement these decisions and get noticed. And I can tell you that has happened for a couple of women that we're working with at the grassroots. I remember some years ago when I attended the first African Women and Water Conference in 2008 with a grassroots woman leader from northwestern Nigeria, where I am based. We went and we were able to pick up the biosand water filter technology. We came back, we brought together a couple of women from, and we were able to step down the training. Those women were able to pick skills around how to treat water, how to, earn money from selling treated water. And then we went back to our community and we installed the biosand water filter. And this woman leader got noticed, and she became the first woman in her village that was brought to be a part of the traditional council of her village. And that's just one story among many. So we tell women you cannot be laid back. We can't continue to, most vulnerable, we're the most marginalized. So we take information, we take skills to these women. And with that, I'm excited that the United Nations, has brought to the forefront the issue that these vulnerable groups exist, and if they are not included in climate action, then I'm not sure that where we want to in terms of climate justice and also reversing the impacts of climate change. Thank you.
Thanks, Olankike. And I just want to remind those of us in the audience that if you have any questions for our panelists, we're going to have some time for questions. So please put your questions into the Q&A box, which should be at the bottom of your screen. So I just encourage you to do that. I have a final question for both of you, and Yevgeniya, maybe we'll start with you. So, you know, the humanity is facing a lot of big challenges these days, and that includes climate change is a you know, pretty big existential issue, but we're also facing conflict. We're facing democratic backsliding and other challenges. And some of these seem to be insurmountable. And I just want to know, how do you retain your motivation, your momentum to do the work that you do in the face of all of these challenges, and especially recently?
Very good question about motivation. And sometimes I ask myself why I doing what I doing, because it's really dangerous. And I remember a moment when Putin starts to attack my husband, and after that, his ribbon were broken, and he could not see normally. He blamed for one eye, and it was horrible moment on my life. I was really afraid about my husband, and but I very pleasant for Estonia, because thanks of good medicine, he returned his eyes. But I asked myself many times why I continue my struggle, because it's really dangerous for my kids, for my husband, for my family, and of course for me too. At this moment, not, because I located on amazing country, on Estonia, but when I was activist in Russia, I could not stop it because maybe it was a question of justice. And I feel that if I stop my activity, I became on the world without justice, and it was impossible to survive on this unfair world. And I realized that for me, activism, it's like a psychology therapy. If I'm doing nothing on injustice world, I feel myself horrible. It's destroying me. But when I'm doing something, it's helped me to survive. For example, now it's impossible to observe movies and reports from Ukraine. Absolutely impossible, because it's so injustice. It's so horrible to bomb peaceful Kyiv and Kharkov and other peaceful cities and kill thousands people, peaceful people. And of course, it's horrible problem that a lot of Russian soldiers, approximately 10,000 young soldiers, came to this disgusting war and were killed on this war. And I feel that at this moment, only one opportunity to survive on this crazy world is organized struggle against this war. And every day I disseminate information about anti-military action. And one day ago, I came to peaceful conference, anti-military conference on Vilnius, and we organized a special resolution for leaders on Europe, on America, to close sky under the Ukraine. And I took part on huge rallies on Estonia against war. And it's my message to survive, because it's impossible to observe situation on Ukraine and doing nothing for me. And I'm very surprised when I found on Facebook people who decided to live on their ordinary life and switch off any information about this war. For me, it's impossible because tomorrow Russian authorities take your son and send them to war against peaceful Ukraine. It's impossible to switch off real life. And I think that mission of activists at this moment to disseminate true information about situation on Ukraine. It's extremely important for us.
Thank you so much, Yevgeniya. Olankike, before we go to questions from the audience, can you just reflect on how you retain your motivation to keep working and what gives you hope to keep doing this sort of work? And you're muted, I think, Olankike, so.
Oh, sorry. I really wish everyone could see me better, but I'm just so sorry that I didn't anticipate that there will be a power outage. Yeah, so for me, just like the story, I shared about the woman who became the first woman of her village. Stories Nigeria, where but how deadly it has become to live in this part of Nigeria. It's one of the deadliest places to currently live in Nigeria because of banditry, kidnapping, and all that. So just recently, one of our women was a target of kidnapping because of the work she does in her community. This is a widow who, continues to mobilize and support women, and she's registered with our organization. And so she escaped being kidnapped with her kids, alongside her kids, and we had another project, intervention, we wanted to launch, and she was going to be part of that project. And I had to have a heart-to-heart talk with her to say, this is dangerous. You are already being targeted in the community, because they actually came to our house and they escaped by the whiskers. Her house was showing that they actually targeted her. And so I spoke to her that morning. I was jittery. I was afraid myself. And I told her, I said, we don't want to put you in greater risk. And she told me something. She said, we won't stop. They will have to stop. All we need to do is continue saying stay. And when I hear such voices, it gives me the courage to go on. It gives me the courage to press on. On Thursday, we'll be celebrating our yearly International Women's Day, Thursday, 10th of March. And we have over 500 women who have already registered for our event. So I can't imagine, stopping this work and just sitting back and doing nothing. When women are looking for opportunities, they're looking for platforms to be heard. They're looking for opportunities that will equip them with skills that will make them authors of their own change, that will help them change the lot in their homes, change the lot in their communities and all that. So all this keeps me motivated and gives me the drive. I love to see the smile on the faces of these women when we know that we are making a difference. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you both. So now we're going to go to some questions from our audience. And I'm going to use my prerogative to combine a couple of questions from different participants. So there's a question about how can women find global coalitions that help strengthen each other and allow them to share lessons and strategies. And I think a related question as well from the IGLI founder and director who's currently on sabbatical, Marie Berry, but who joined us today, about what people watching this this conversation can do to support the work of activists who are fighting for environmental justice and other struggles. So how do you kind of build coalitions, and what can those of us do to support who are listening to your voices? Yevgeniya, let's start with you and then go to Olankike for that.
Okay, and I think that at this moment, extremely important to disseminate information about real protest on Russia. And I think it's extremely important for all the world, and it will be really very important help if you help us and disseminate information about that. And it will be a great helpful for activists. It's a first point, because unfortunately at this moment, Russian authorities blocked Facebook on Russia. And at this moment, only propaganda machine to disseminate information within Russia. And it's really very important to share real information about protest campaigns on Russia. If you ask me about other help for activists at this moment, I think that we need to help for Russian activists who have a problem with Putin's regime to evacuate from Russia, because it's a question of surviving people. At this moment, we have on Russia military dictatorship regime, and I'm very afraid then during the time, Putin regime started to shoot of people, peaceful people on demonstrations. And I really afraid about activists under pressure of Putin's regime on Russia. And I kindly ask you to help us to evacuate activists from Russia and journalists from Russia, because on a peaceful place, they continue their activity, spread information about real situation within Russia, and they continue a very, very important job, because at this moment, we try to organize campaign and share information about real situation on Ukraine. And we want to share this information with mom of Russian soldiers, because I think that role of mom on this question very, very important. And we want to organize campaign and ask mom and sisters and wives, Russian women, to ask their men not to come to Ukraine, not to kill to peaceful Ukraine people. And we must organize this campaign and to share information with soldiers' mom. It's my dream to organize this campaign, and I think it will be extremely important for us now.
Thank you. Olankike? How can people support, and how do you build coalitions across movements? Olankike, are you able to hear us, or are you thinking?
Yeah, I align my thoughts with some of the things that, because of time, I'll just want to keep it really short. I align my thoughts with Yevgeniya. I just want to add that, a lot of capacity is also needed, for, activists who are working. We need to keep learning and unlearning, and connecting with different opportunities that will, continue to motivate us and keep us on track. We've been talking about safety for activists. That's very paramount. So, there are coalitions and, different supports that activists need. I think once activists are identified in different places, some of these opportunities can be, brought to knowledge. So they know how to continue to stay safe, so grow and in what we're all doing. So opportunities for capacity building, opportunities for staying safe.
Thank you. Thank you. So another question, we don't have much time, so hopefully you're able to provide at least a brief answer to this, although it's a very big question. So what would it look like if you were able to succeed in your work and really advance environmental justice and struggles against militarism and patriarchy? What would we need to get there, right? And what are some of the values that would be central to achieving that vision of a more just and peaceful world?
It's really a very, very good question. And I think that thanks of solidarity and thanks of university like Denver University and other amazing university, when you give us a platform for share our information. Thanks of this discussion, we can to share our information and involve on our struggle new members. And I think it's extremely important discussion, today discussion. And I hope that thanks of this event, more people want to support Russian activists. And I want to say thank you so much for this conversation. It was extremely important for me, and I feel myself a little bit better because I feel solidarity. Thank you for this vitamin of solidarity.
Thank you, Yevgeniya. Olankike? Olankike, are you able to hear us, or again, reflecting on?
Yeah, so my network was wobbly when you asked that last question, so I didn't really get,
Yeah, so really just the question is, what would it look like if you were able to succeed in your efforts to achieve a more just world and one where these forces of patriarchy and imperialism and colonialism are done away with? What would that look like, and how would we get there? So it's a very big question. So feel free to answer any part.
Yeah,
We have a couple of minutes.
For myself and my organization, the platform or women, and for us that will help us reach at least over 5,000. And any suppose realize that dream is going to be, a big achievement for us, because now we'll have a safe space, where women, it's going to be a very integrated, all-encompassing space where women will actually feel safe enough to come together and drive solutions forward. So achieving that eco-learning center, which we will possibly, once we've achieved it in Nigeria, would love to replicate in other parts of the world. It's going to be a big bang for us.
Thank you so much, Olankike and Yevgeniya. And I hope you do feel the solidarity that we have with you and with the other activists who are working in your countries and around the world to make this world a better place. And I'm just very grateful that you were able to take the time, despite all the work that you're doing and the challenges that you're facing, to join us here today for this important conversation. I want to thank Dean Mayer for his introduction. I want to thank you, Olankike and Yevgeniya, for being with us, and all of the participants and listeners to this webinar for coming with us to help us highlight your work and its importance to achieving a more just and sustainable future. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you a lot for this important conversation.
Thank you, Chen. It's a lifetime opportunity for me, and it will remain in my memories.
Well, we will be in touch, so it won't just be a memory, Olankike and Yevgeniya.
Yeah, I'm just saying that this particular opportunity will stay close to my heart and my memory.
Thank you. Ours too.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Yevgeniya. Nice connecting with you. I hope we're able to connect one-on-one beyond this.
Thank you, Olankike. And I want to hug you. Thank you a lot. You make amazing job. Thank you.
Thank you. You too. I'm inspired.
And thank you for this conversation. And bye-bye.